But if you want to preserve your power indefinitely, you have to get the consent of the ruled.
Those who are plugged into reality are getting a sinking feeling in their gut. We're in a shift. A few of us are misguidedly demanding for someone to make a change. The rest are happy to drift through life. But there's no real difference between these two inactions. Only those who do will contribute to the outcome.
To change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore.
We have consented to be part of a collective vehicle, to be driven into the sea, to drown while the drivers escape. And that's generally how things go. Once in a while, we take them down with us, but their doctrine always survives. Are we stuck in this cycle, or can we manipulate it? Can we flip it? Can we escape while they drown? Maybe. But the gain from this would be brief, lasting only until their subordinates fill the vacant role of power. Let's not drive off the cliff at all, sinking into the darkness of an untold past. Let's crash before we get there. Let's destroy the vehicle and escape while they try and gather the pieces. Who are these drivers? It doesn't matter who. It only matters that it's not the individual. It only matters that it excludes us. Their power is funneled through the state, so we'll use the label. The state's entire being is focused on putting off the shift. They want to preserve their moment of power and stretch it out indefinitely. They can't, but they will hurt countless trying to. When their time ends, they'll fall out of reach, but only to rise up again in the glory of a new now. The swords they'll always wield are distraction and docility. In distraction, we do not think. In docility, we do not act. Distraction fractures us and gives us a false sense of vigor. We take a side, feeling passionate and fulfilled. We ignore the big picture. We're mice, fighting over what to eat, who to bed, and where to live, when all we have to do is notice the walls and chew through them. The happy mouse will never bother.
Happiness is beautiful, it's a kind of reality. Happiness is the highest good, happiness is free. So let's be so very happy.
Welcome to the Happiness Show. This is George Ortega. I'm here with Lionel Ketchian, and we're here to talk about happiness, because happiness is, always has been, and always will be the point of it all. Okay, today we're going to be talking about the happy pill. Okay, Lionel, why don't you start us off? Why do we need a happiness pill?
Everything has been geared towards finding happiness. If you're not happy, then something is wrong. Take a class, take a pill, read a book. Happiness is what matters most. It's become a cult, rejecting all other states of mind. The perfect still water, allowing ruling forces to fester and spread. All the while we smile, submitting to a lukewarm dream. The happy stay stagnant. The happy don't speak out or revolt. Happy can't be our starting point. Happiness is created, not found. Being sad, enraged, resentful, especially right now, is appropriate. It's needed. Allow yourself to feel everything. Torment, anger, despair. This is what fuels passion and change. This is what makes us exceptional. When we're born, we inherit rights that no one can take away, at least in spirit. The right to life, which extends to the right to defend that life. The right to property, which extends to defending that property and the privacy within it. And the right to be free, to speak freely, and to live freely, as long as you don't impede on the rights of others. Respecting these rights should result in equality, that is, equal treatment of human beings under law. But that's not what equality means today. There's a big difference between treating everyone equally and trying to make everyone equal. Now equality means that we're all the same. This has made us entitled to perpetuate baseless ideas. It doesn't matter if the topic being discussed just entered our vocabulary. We are taught that our words still carry weight.
CNN did yesterday. What is your opinion? What do you think the likelihood is of a terrorist attack at the Olympic Games in Greece? There was 6% said it was very likely, 44% said somewhat likely, 33% not very likely, 13% said not likely at all. That's 99%. It's a fucking pie chart. 99% of the people had an opinion. The only answer to that question is, I don't fucking know. How would I know? But everyone's got a very strong opinion with no fucking actual knowledge to go with it. 99% should be a whole pizza pie chart of I don't fucking know. That shows you 99% of Americans will give you a strong opinion even though they have no fucking clue whatsoever. They're just going to be mad. They want to fill out comment cards.
We are so equal that when there's a conflict, it must be on the basis of gender, sex, religion, or race, since all other factors are considered arbitrary. We are taught that we're equally learned, equally witty, and equally comprehending. Therefore, our only differences are external. Equality now means we're a collective. Equality has become synonymous with entitlement. We are all equal, therefore we deserve the same wages, the same education, the same health care, no matter at what or whose cost. But we are not all the same. We are strong, weak, smart, stupid, talented, basic, misguided, lovable, wicked. We all start in different places, have different natural and granted advantages, and we all follow different paths. We can't deny this reality with law and social policy. We can't force equal opportunity because it's a lie. The only thing we can do is leave individuals alone and not take away people's rights. Not only is equality a lie, it's also mundane. It's the ultimate demotivation. If you're equal to everyone else, you're already there, so sit back and do nothing. Be equally ruled, equally coerced, equally debased. We can only escape this by accepting our freedom as our own responsibility.
Wait a minute, what is this thing called group? Where is a group? Can you point to a group? Can you see a group? And you can't. You can only see individuals. The word group is an abstraction. It's like the word forest. There's no such thing as a forest. There are only trees. Sure. You can see trees, but you cannot see forests. So it's an abstraction. When you then, therefore, base a political philosophy on an abstraction, and you say that this abstraction has rights that are greater than the individual, you've made a huge mistake, because what you're doing is you're sacrificing this so-called group anyway, but you're doing it one person at a time. And the irony of it is that the leaders of this so-called democracy, or this concept of collectivism, of the superiority of the group, the leaders are making the decisions of what is best for the greater number.
Don't accept the insult of equality. This is just another form of collectivism. And when we're collected into neat piles, we are easy to reign over. We must be individuals practicing non-compliance. We must give them too many pieces to pick up. Chaos begets freedom. William Gibson said, "Things aren't different, things are things." Does our existence loop, unchanging in its essence? Can anyone hope to be of real influence? Can there be true change, or does history simply repeat itself? History doesn't repeat itself. It rhymes. The future can look bleak because our power structure doesn't seem to change at its core, but we are human beings. We only live in the now, and that now can be shaped to our benefit. Imagine our timeline as a cave, and us as both fading and amplified echoes. We know what's going to happen because its remnants are in our past. What we can influence is how and under what circumstances the shift presents itself. A new sound won't escape the cave, but it will change the chorus. We need to stop lending them a hand. We've allowed them to poison our minds. Suspicion, accusation, fear, guilt, worship. We tell each other that we've become selfish and greedy, but can we truly be selfish while letting our lives be ruled by external forces? And we're definitely not greedy. We used to want the world. Now we want a stable job and an Xbox. We can't rebuild a world that's still standing. We can't comprehend a shift when we live in placidity, just like we can't make a leap without momentum. But is it plausible to hurl ourselves at a solid wall which has the historical success of murdering spirit and sculpting apathetic attitudes? What if we fail, or worse, suffer? Dostoevsky described that the horror of being sentenced to death was not in the death, but in the wait. Being trapped in a vehicle of serfdom is always worse than the crash. Waiting is the death. This is the point that needs to resonate. In a time when caring makes you a radical, taking action makes you a traitor, and helping the shift makes you a terrorist, this message can easily be lost on the masses. Good thing we don't need them. Revolution has always been made up of the minority. It only takes the ideas of a few to make a world for the many. We can reconstruct the now in our own vision, even if it's just for the brief time between the next collapse. That is where our choice lies.
The government once drew to it people who loved liberty. It now draws to it people who love power.
These people, and it's hard for decent moral people to get into the mindset of a politician, because basically they're sociopaths. They couldn't care in the slightest about you. Not even just what you want. They don't care if you suffer and die, as long as they have their power.
When they set their sights on you, they want to hurt you.
And that's when I realized America is not America. It's not the land that I was taught it was, because they can do whatever they wish to do, and there's nothing the citizen can do about it.
The largest criminal entity at large today is not some Colombian cocaine gang, it's the U.S. government. They're far more dangerous, and they have a legal monopoly to do anything they want with it.
Our government interferes with you more with every tick of the clock.
I think all governments are the same. They do not have much of a heart, sir.
The last thing we want is a government that can get things done. A government that can get things done, all they will get done is taking away freedoms. It's been shown over and over again.
It's always those people that believe you should deal with other people by force that are attracted to government, because the government is congealed force. I mean, as Mao said, the power of the state comes out of a barrel of a gun.
No man has the right to initiate physical force, violence, compulsion against other men. Men have certainly the right of self-defense, but no man, no group of men, that includes the government, has the right to initiate force.
When you learned don't hit and don't steal, it wasn't unless you work for the government. When you learned thou shalt not kill, it wasn't unless your dear leader gives you a gun and a uniform and a one-way ticket to the other side of the world. Government is force. An opinion with a gun.
Well, what is it about the government? Are they morally superior to us that they can lie with impunity, lie with the law behind them, and if one of us would presume to do it to them, we could end up in jail? The government has institutionalized lying.
I mean, look at Obama and all the happy warmongering he's doing. Again, does anyone imagine he changed his mind, that he used to actually be pro-peace? And the people are like, we voted for you and we don't want this. He knows you don't want it. That's why when he was campaigning, he pretended to be anti-war.
I believe that our country, uniquely for the time, was founded on mistrust for the government, which is such a heavy and beautiful idea.
I will say this much. I cannot believe the government because they couldn't tell the truth about the air to breathe to people.
I have certain rules I live by. My first rule, I don't believe anything the government tells me. Nothing. Zero.
There aren't genuine politics. There's the media telling you Barack Obama versus Mitt Romney is like the epic clash of ideology, when we both know they're globalist neoliberals. I mean, they both exist to preserve like the interest of this relatively autonomous class of Goldman Sachs bankers.
They say if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, then he's got to get a fishing license, but he doesn't have any money. So he's got to get a job, and he has to get into the Social Security system and pay taxes. And now you're going to audit the poor cocksucker because he's not really good with math.
If there's a government, it will take your stuff. Every government in the history of the world has taken the stuff of the people it claimed to protect.
The state is an institution of theft writ large. Tax is just about a system where politicians and bureaucrats steal money from their citizens to squander in the most disgraceful manner. This place is no exception. Fascinatingly, and I really don't know how you manage to keep a straight face when you're talking about tax evasion, the whole Commission and the Commission bureaucracy avoid their taxes. You don't pay taxes like citizens pay taxes. You have all sorts of special deals. You are the biggest tax avoiders in Europe.
The Supreme Court has ruled that the IRS has no authority. The 16th Amendment did not give the IRS the authority to tax your labor and your wages.
The government is forcing Americans to participate in the world's biggest Ponzi scheme. I mean, so we need to be protected from government, not the other way around.
The banking system is fully corrupt and defrauding us.
They're trying to do things knowing it leads to disasters in the economy and people going bankrupt and losing their houses.
What you've done with this euro is you have trapped people in an economic prison.
What they've done is crash the economy in 2008 and done it on purpose. And then they started a massive, phenomenal, unprecedented transfer of wealth from the mass of the people to this elite through the banking system.
Tens of trillions of dollars are being extracted from the United States of America.
They're going to create a total hardcore collapse level depression to reorganize society. Do you understand that?
What they've got to understand, these people now who are seriously rich, if you are not part of this network, they want your money too. So we're in this together. And if they divide and rule us by saying, well, it's not my problem, or it's not my problem, and then suddenly knock, 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 can I talk to you, sir? Well, it is your problem.
Guantanamo is used for laundering people to an offshore haven, which doesn't follow the rule of law. Similarly, Iraq and Afghanistan and Colombia are used to wash money out of the US tax base and back.
Arms companies.
Arms companies, yeah.
I mean, what you're saying is that money and money-making is at the center of modern war, and it's almost self-perpetuating.
Yes, and it's becoming worse.
I'm so sick of arming the world and then sending troops over to destroy the fucking arms. You know what I mean? We keep arming these little countries, then we go and blow the shit out of them.
I just got this memo from the Secretary of Defense's office that says we're going to attack and destroy the governments in 7 countries in 5 years. We're going to start with Iraq, and then we're going to move to Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran.
It's everybody. It's Ho Chi Minh. It's Mao Zedong. It's Manuel Noriega. It's Osama bin Laden. It's Saddam Hussein. It's the Shah. They build them up, they knock them down, and I watch them stick our troops in these meat grinders.
We became obsessed with capturing and killing human targets on lists, and on being suspicious of and avoiding cooperation with our host nation partners. I believe that if the general public, especially the American public, had access to the information contained within the Sydney I and Sydney A tables, this could spark a domestic debate on the role of the military and our foreign policy in general, as well as related to Iraq and Afghanistan.
People don't like to be bombed. They don't like to be droned. They don't want their countries destroyed and their wedding parties blown up and little children out picking up firewood blown up by a drone.
You know, people's hatred of each other can be easily fueled. And that's what it's divide and conquer. And your neighbor, your brother becomes an enemy worse than the enemy that's actually pulling your strings, both of you, from far away.
This is not a map, it's a wish list. It's a wish list of countries in North Africa, the Middle East and the Near East, which they are picking off one after the other. Libya, now they're into Syria, they're starting trouble in Lebanon, they're in Iraq, they're in Afghanistan. Of course, they want Iran. And what they're doing is they're finding different excuses to pick off different countries, because they have to find different excuses, or people might think that there's a pattern here.
Our government armed the Libyan al-Qaeda rebels out of Saudi Arabia, who first came from Saudi Arabia and other countries, into Benghazi 2 years ago to destabilize and take down Libya.
This is what Libya looked like in 2007. This is what the same street looks like in 2011. This is Libya. Hey, you are free.
I've been predicting for quite a while now that we were going to see boots on the ground in Syria before Iran.
Plans, rumors, and war propaganda for attacking Syria and disposing Assad has been around for many months. This past week, however, it was reported that the Pentagon indeed was finalizing plans to do just that. In my opinion, all the evidence to justify this attack is bogus. It is no more credible than the pretext given for the 2003 invasion of Iraq or for the 2011 attack on Libya.
12 years after 3,000 Americans were killed by al-Qaeda, President Obama now asks us to be allies with al-Qaeda. Americans, by a large majority, want nothing to do with the Syrian civil war.
Also glad to grace the stage where Boris Johnson has just made light of the use of chemical weapons in Syria, meaning that GQ can now stand for genocide quips.
At the UN, an Israeli ambassador a year ago said that we should expect to see the Syrian government gassing children in the future. And 1 year later, the smoke clears, and the same ambassador said, we want to make sure that those Syrian chemical weapon stockpiles don't end up in the hands of Hezbollah. So really, it's not about Syria's children. It's about the chemical weapons. It's about getting at them, because they don't want to have any country that has a deterrent, not, except for themselves. They want to control all the power, just like they do with the guns.
Chicago, Illinois has had some of the strictest gun control laws in America enacted for the past few years, and it is currently more than twice as likely for you to be killed in Chicago as in the Afghani war.
They're trying to disarm people, knowing that leads to higher crime rates.
If you look at cities like Chicago and Washington, D.C., which tried to ban guns altogether, they consistently have some of the highest crime rates, some of the highest murder rates in the entire country. Yeah. It doesn't work, because when you strip away the right to keep and bear arms of law-abiding citizens, the criminals keep their guns. Yep. You just disarm the populace.
I'd also like to point out that none of the guns used in the Chicago shootings were registered or licensed to the people who used them, thus even further proving that simply restricting guns will not stop criminals from using them.
I was in the Philippines, physically, the day Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law and made himself a dictator, and the first thing that dictator did, he gave the people of the Philippines 2 weeks to turn in all their guns, or it was the death penalty. Now, why would a dictator do that?
We also had gun registration. Oh, the Austrian people they all had guns. But the government said the guns are very dangerous and we really have to have total control, safety. So we dutifully went to the police station and we registered our guns. Not long after, they said, no, it didn't help. The only way that we don't have accidents and crimes, you bring the guns to the police station and then we don't have any crimes anymore and any accidents. And if you don't do that, capital punishment. So that's what we did.
Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns.
I don't need a document, and I don't need another man to explain to me that I have the right to defend my gift of life. And that there is an argument in America from Hillary Clinton, from Barbara Boxer, Dianne Feinstein, from a whole gaggle of numbnuts who would try to tell me they will dictate where, how, and if I can defend myself. I find that preposterous. I find it unacceptable, and I will not accept it. I am a free man. Don't tread on me.
There is a point of hypocrisy when it comes to gun control. That many of the proponents of gun control are very wealthy, live in communities where they can outsource police protection. But you have a lot of people that are worried about preserving the safety of their own home. If you're talking to a single woman living in Anacostia who has the misfortune to live next to a crack house, to tell her she doesn't have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms.
By signing this legislation, you are not signing away gun violence, but instead liberating American citizens of our constitutional rights. You are not eliminating guns from society, but eliminating our ability to protect our lives, liberty, and pursuits of happiness.
The guys who founded our country gave us the right to have guns, so the time came for the next revolution, we'd be armed and ready. And when people support gun control for their comfort or their peace of mind, they're forgetting that they're killing something there too. Gun control is bullshit.
The Second Amendment of our Bill of Rights is my concealed weapons permit. Period.
What if every woman were issued a gun? Who's going to rob or rape when there's a 50% chance that Janie's got a gun?
Thingiverse.com, which is kind of like known in the hobby or the maker community to be like this repository of community information for 3D printing, it decided to take unilateral action and just remove all these gun-related files. And, you know, it seems pretty clear it was a response to Sandy Hook. So, look, you know, without even judging what they're doing, it just is an act of censorship in my mind.
People talk about censorship as if it is somehow independent from surveillance. And one of the things that we need to remember is that censorship is a byproduct of almost all surveillance.
So who here has an iPhone? Who here has a BlackBerry? Who here uses Gmail? Well, you're all screwed. The reality is, intelligence contractors are selling right now to countries across the world mass surveillance systems for all those products.
The NSA specifically targets the communications of everyone. It ingests them by default. It collects them in its system, and it filters them, and it analyzes them, and it measures them, and it stores them.
Really, this is what our founding fathers fought the revolution over. At least one of the points is they objected to general warrants. These were warrants that didn't specify who was going to be searched, so the British soldiers could go from house to house. Now we're going from computer to computer, not of people who are suspected of being terrorists, of every American. They're going through 1 billion phone calls a day, and from your phone records, they can track your movements.
This state is a totalizing state. It wants to observe everything. It wants to know everything. It wants to write everything in the tables of power.
It's the spying on us without warrants that's illegal, that's done ubiquitously. Just because they have a computer to do it doesn't mean anything.
A child born today will grow up with no conception of privacy at all. They'll never know what it means to have a private moment to themselves, an unrecorded, unanalyzed thought. And that's a problem, because privacy matters. Privacy is what allows us to determine who we are and who we want to be.
Because in fact, living without dignity, living without privacy, is a cancer in itself to society, which in itself also eats away at the human. When you live under that kind of surveillance, like total, absolute surveillance, where every time you pick up the phone, you know that it's being recorded, you say things differently. So as we sort of move into this nightmarish world, we have to decide if that's actually the world we want to live in.
People are being put on the watch list for criticizing the government, for engaging in anti-war protest. Their kids are being put on the watch list.
We're being spied on by our government. Duh. Who does not know that?
But to have an industrial scale surveillance system that's tracking my every activity and every transaction, every movement, and combining all this information together, that Stasi in East Germany would have drooled over this capability.
But I, sitting at my desk, certainly had the authorities to wiretap anyone, from you or your accountant to a federal judge to even the president if I had a personal email.
This originally started even before 9/11. They were soliciting this kind of information from the telecoms. The CEO of Quest testified that in court, or his court documents showed that he was approached in February of 2001 to provide customer data to the government so they could do analysis of calling communities and things like that. So to me, it seemed that that was an indication that the intent was to have a view inside the United States all along.
Because I've heard quite a lot of people that talk about post-privacy, and they talk about it in terms of feeling like, you know, it's too late, right? We're done for. There's just like no possibility for privacy left anymore, and we just have to get used to it. And this is a pretty fascinating thing, because it seems to me that you never hear a feminist say that we're post-consent because there is rape, right? And why is that? The reason is because that's bullshit.
Surveillance and behavioral control, actually, have always been the economic basis of media. The commodity is not the media being delivered. So for instance, if you're talking about network television, the commodity in question is not the television show. The television show is just simply used to attract the real commodity, which is the audience. And the audience is not the customer, not the user in any kind of sense like in the market. The audience is actually what is being sold, and it's being sold to advertisers and lobby groups, what Smythe calls the consciousness industry, the industry that's interested in controlling your behavior.
The same people that control the politicians own the media. And so the media is not there, just like governments, to serve the interests and inform the people. It is there to tell the people what those who own the media want them to believe.
I understand everything he's saying.
No, it's because you're looking at him. When you don't see him and you don't see the lips.
I understand the whole thing.
Stop saying he. I'm present. Russell. What's wrong with your manners?
You're good.
Be polite.
I'm coming in tomorrow with a big necklace and I'm opening.
Look beyond the superficial. That's the problem with current affairs. You forget about what's important. You allow the agenda to be decided by superficial information. What am I saying? What am I talking about? Don't think about what I'm wearing. These things are redundant.
I'm distracted.
Superficial.
I don't want that to be my country. I don't want that to be our legacy. I want my country back. I want it back.
Stand together, stand tall, tell the government you're mad as hell, no longer cooperate with the government, stop being a country run by the institutions for the institutions. Let's go back to we the people, by the people, for the people, as opposed to we the institution, by the institution, for the institution. Stand up for your individual rights. Stand up for the godliness that's in each and every one of us.
The worse things get, the more people start questioning the elaborate illusion painted for us by the propaganda, and therein lies the opportunity. It is time we make the freedom movement a threat to the establishment.
This is an era of confrontation between the disinherited, the oppressed, the former colonial possessions. This is an era when the empire strikes back.
There is truly a revolution of ideas. It's going to be a non-violent revolution, but we're going to stand up on principle, and we have an idea whose time has come, and nobody's going to stop it.
If people are empowered with information, if people are unified, if people have like a common understanding, are prepared to look at what we share, what unifies us instead of what separates us, then the people are invincible. This is the irrefutable truth of the elitist pyramid structures, is when the people are awake, it is impossible to maintain. This is why we need a police force, no disrespect officer, and a domestic army to control populations, because when the people decide this is over now, then it is over now, and we are close to this realization.
The authorities have been established. You have given yourselves a master. You have placed yourselves, and thanks to your adorable council and initiatives, the country has placed itself at the disposal of a few men. And these men use the force you have bestowed upon them, and they use it against you. And you are reconciled with them? What were you thinking? That they would use it against themselves? Get the fuck up. Simon says, get the fuck up. You ask questions, and we don't have all the answers. But anarchy is accepting that we don't have all the answers. More so, anarchy is accepting that no one should have all the answers. The beauty is, it is through questions that we evolve. The answers are found along the way. The answers are picked up along the path. But where does the path lead? What is our end goal? We should never have an end goal, because the means to an end are always brutal. Besides, if realized, we might just self-destruct like Frankenstein's monster. The very problem lies in wanting to be sure of a solution before we attempt one. But we need to accept that we can never be sure. Remember that scene in The Last Crusade where Indy has to put his faith in an invisible bridge? He does, and he makes it across. If he did not, he would have fallen, or worse, stayed exactly where he was. We need to brave the world and take that step forward. And on our way, through deconstruction, like Michelangelo freed the beauty of David from inside his stone, we too need to chip away at the state until we find the beauty of life. And what is that? If the absence of imposed structure and authority is anarchy, so be it. It is absence of government. It is anarchy, the highest expression of order. But you cry, prove anarchy works, and we say, we need not prove a negative. You're afraid of the uncalculated, the unknown. We're afraid of the system that we're acquainted with, because its horror and corruption is visible and certain. You're afraid of what you might find in the dark. We're afraid of the gun placed at our temples in the light of day. But you cry, prove anarchy works, and we say, welcome to anarchy, population everyone. It's everywhere. It's the only reason people survive any oppressive regimes. It's the only reason people survived over 70 years of communist Russia. It's that healthy network of black markets which undermine the fascist, communist, corporatist, statist, authoritarian sensibilities. Not from within the belly, but under the skin of the beast, like mice inside walls. And now it's the internet. And now it's our currency. We have Stockholm Syndrome. We have grown used to the hum of the machine. Instead of privacy, we have permission. Instead of life, we have granted existence. I let go of law, and people become honest. I let go of economics, and people become prosperous. I let go of religion, and people become serene. I let go of all desire for the common good, and the good becomes common as grass. Let go of control and see what manifests. Allow anarchy to eat away at the foundations of the state. We are the Hydra. Cut the head off. I dare you. Prove anarchy works, you say? I think, therefore I am. I live, therefore I am an anarchist. You don't agree. You like your structure. You like your comfort. you like to be governed, to be watched, inspected, spied upon, law-driven, numbered, regulated, enrolled, indoctrinated, preached at, controlled, checked, estimated, valued, commanded by creatures who have neither the wisdom, the virtue, or the right to do so. To be governed is to be at every operation, every transaction, noted, registered, counted, taxed, stamped, measured, numbered, addressed, licensed, authorized, prevented, forbidden, reformed, corrected, punished, under the pretext of public utility and in the name of general interest, to be placed under contribution, to be drilled, fleeced, exploited, monopolized, extorted from, squeezed, hoaxed, robbed. Then, at the slightest resistance, at the slightest word of complaint, to be repressed, fined, vilified, harassed, hunted down, abused, clubbed, disarmed, bound, choked, imprisoned, judged, condemned, shot, deported, sacrificed, sold, betrayed, and to crown all, mocked, ridiculed, and dishonored. That is government. That is its justice. That is its morality. If you are happy with this, you have my blessing, but leave me out of it, so I be never again the victim of a man dressed in gore-dripping robes of authority. Allow me to escape the feedback loop. Allow me to escape the feedback loop. Allow me to escape the feedback loop. The state is a collection of ideas, propagated and implemented, not by force, but as a result of our compliance. Human compliance occurs naturally, and like most natural resources, it can be cultivated and grown. So here we are, stuck in the feedback loop of watchful prevention. The worship of what-ifs, the assumption of better judgment, the age-old tool of good intentions, the ageless logic of for the greater good, the humble attitude of we do what we must because we can. Passive protocols, conveyor belt screenings, systematic surveillance, background checks, foreground balances, aerial scans, ground drills, the security of security. And how do they reconcile their failures? Why, failure is the greatest tool of all, for it shows the public that the state can do better, that we need more paper and ink, that we need more policy makers, that we need more people behind podiums and microphones, that we need better people to solve the problem of people. There's a fetishism for preventative measures. The state is obsessed with stopping events from occurring. We have been preserved in a state of potentiality. Bad things might happen, bad people might exist, bad items might be sold, consumed, distributed, or dissolved untaxed. You are now entering Zone 6. Please display your retinas for scan. This is not a dystopian idea. This would be better than what we have now, because Zone 6 is TSA, NSA, Apple, Google, and it's not just your retinas, it's your entire being. So let's write state with a capital S, because it has become our God. And like God, who may or may not be watching over us, our government is the panopticon. Not unlike the observed atom, the observed man is seldom sincere. We have been frozen in a reality of coping. Move at your own risk, but for God's sakes, don't mark the world. Think of the children, don't fill your head with ideas. Please vibrate at the designated frequency. Best consume the approved narrative. And remember to live within the means of our reality. We are not shaped, we are misshapen. We are somewhere between Uchronia and Utopia. We are stuck in what could have been and what could be, but the only time is now. Let's not backtrack. There's not going to be another revolution in the West. The age of the barricade is long dead, and the age of the protest is stillborn. The InfoWar is won. Most of us just choose not to subscribe, but we don't need most of us. This is not about unification. This is about making the structure irrelevant. We are our own shepherds. We are our own fertile soils. We have our own means. And not all our ideas can be sold. If I were to accept the dishonest meaning of anarchy, then I should become a tyrant. For anarchy has become synonymous with civil war. But I do not accept it, for I know its true meaning. Anarchy is the negation of governments. Governments who have found nothing better to do than to school us in the fear and horror of their destruction. But since governments are the negation of the individual, it is reasonable that upon waking up to essential truths, that we should feel a greater horror at our own annihilation than that of our masters. Because civil war is not a product of the absence of the state, rather it is a product of the multiplicity of states. Anarchy is an ancient word, but for us, it articulates a modern interest. For anarchy is nothing less than the true expression of social order. How so? Well, anarchy equals the negation of government. The negation of government equals affirmation of the people. Affirmation of the people equals individual liberty. Individual liberty equals individual sovereignty. Individual sovereignty equals equality. Equality equals solidarity. Solidarity equals social order. By contrast, government equals the negation of the people. The negation of the people equals affirmation of political authority. Affirmation of political authority equals dependency. Dependency equals class supremacy. Class supremacy equals inequality. Inequality equals antagonism. Antagonism equals civil war, from which it follows government equals civil war. In the realm of politics, sacrifice of self for the maintenance or installation of government has always meant having one's throat cut and entrails torn out. Point me to a place where men openly slaughter one another, and I will show you a government behind all the carnage. If you try to explain civil war as anything other than a government's refusal to quit the stage, then you are wasting your time. And the reason is simple. A government is set up. In the very instant of its creation, it has supporters. And in the very instant that it has supporters, it has adversaries. This fact alone quickens the seed of civil war, because a government cannot possibly act towards its adversaries the same way it acts towards its supporters. In other words, once a government is created, favoritism provokes division, spawning antagonism, making civil strife inevitable, from which it follows that government is civil war. On the other hand, if we refrain from attacking or supporting government, then we refrain from civil war. In doing this, we toss the state into a dung heap, finally able to lay foundations of social order. Now, if dispensing with government is on one hand the establishment of order, and on the other the enshrinement of anarchy, then anarchy and order go hand in hand. Thus it follows that anarchy is order.
Get our hopes up.